And Joel, you wanted me to start this episode out with a very bold statement.
I did.
I made this statement before we kicked on the cameras and the microphones. And you said, I want you to start this episode out with that bold statement. So here's my statement. I had to write it down because
There's a lot of setup here.
This is a lot of setup. So here's the sentence. You wanted me to repeat it, so I wrote it down because usually I can only think of things once. If you're not into personal growth, you have a glass ceiling on your understanding of type.
That's a bold statement.
Well, you said it was a bold statement. I don't think it's bold, but you indicated that it was a bold statement. And I guess it could be interpreted as bold because the insinuation is that you only get so far understanding type on its own terms.
Yeah.
You have to, in order to truly understand the model, and I would say its application or all of the different elements of it, because we just talked about the difference in a recent podcast about the difference between a coloring book understanding of type and a Van Gogh understanding of type. And I think that when a person, or my observation is when a person doesn't give themselves the opportunity to put type on a timeline, understand how it changes with the person using these different tools, these cognitive tools, then you're going to have a truncated understanding of the system itself because you're going to be missing lots of pieces of information.
So can I just immediately push back on this idea?
Yes,
play
of course.
devil's advocate.
That's what you do.
Clearly, I agree with you because I'm recording this podcast with you and I am on your side, but I'm going to play the other devil's advocate side for just a moment. So we know based on interviews we've heard and we've seen information around the intelligence community here in the United States using Myers-Briggs. It's their favorite typology system to type people.
The intelligence community, you mean like the CIA?
The CIA, FBI, NSA.
Yeah. Right.
Like we know that that's their preferred tool.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
For psychometric, profiling or typing other people. And what I hear you saying then is because I'm sure the CIA is not using this in a personal growth framework. Are you saying that the CIA doesn't actually understand the system they're using in this really high level against like criminals and spies and all of this? Is that what I can take from your statement?
I don't think they're using it at a high level. I think they're using it at a bare bones level. And I think that a person can understand the system for a wide variety of applications without being into personal development. But if you are not if you're not into personal growth, there will be a cap at how much you can understand the system. So I'm just saying you're going to hit a glass ceiling. I'm not saying that everything, all of the application and content and everything that lives underneath that glass ceiling is irrelevant. I think there's lots of information there and lots of magic and power and all sorts of great stuff that live in, that level of understanding type. I'm just saying if you're not into personal growth, you're going to hit an acme and you might not even understand that it's an acme.
Yeah. Well, I guess from the CIA standpoint, that might be in its best interest because the more they would know about the system, maybe its usefulness might decline. Like maybe the usefulness in is how simple of a framework they're using. And so maybe what we're saying is somebody that comes with a lot of theory behind them, if that theory is not tied to personal growth frameworks of applying it to the self, that theory is probably not very good theory. But if the person was using it to, let's say, type somebody online or, watching a video and determining their best fit type or something, or maybe even in profiling like we teach in profiler training, growth doesn't need to be part of that because, and again, I'm kind of begging the question. I know where we're heading with this, so I'm teeing you up to answer it. So we're saying basically they don't need growth even for those things either.
Well, sometimes a really complex concept of the type system, like you said, goes against your intended use for it.
Yeah.
And so, it's not like when I came out of the gate saying you said it was a bold statement, it probably sounds quite judgmental, and I don't mean it in a judgmental way. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that anything less than that is going to not be good. By the way, I said before, I used the wrong term. I said, you're going to hit an acme. I actually meant you're going to hit a synthetic acme, but it's not going to be the acme, right? You're not going to hit the actual, full understanding of type. And in some ways that's because it doesn't exist. That complete, full 100% understanding of type in all arenas It is a map of humans. And humans, we're not going to understand any human to its nth degree before we die.
Yeah.
And that includes ourselves. And I think it's because it doesn't end, right? As we continue to live, there is more to understand because there are more experiences that are happening. And so type follows the trajectory of people.
Yeah.
It follows that path. So there's no way to get to the acme of type understanding. But you will hit something, you'll hear a little plunk, right? If you don't use it for personal growth, because you won't be able to track the development of people who are on that trajectory. The ones who are continuing to go up, you won't be able to see that. And in spiral dynamics, they have a concept called the pre-trans fallacy, which is if you've got 3 levels of development in something, a person is going to be incapable, like the person who's at the middle level is going to be incapable of seeing the person who's at the higher level. And so whatever characteristics that individual is showing up with, they will attribute it to a lower level. And so that happens as well in type and personal growth. You know, when a person continues to go up that trajectory, an individual who has chosen to not walk that path might actually misinterpret things that they're seeing as being, you know, sort of more simple than they truly are.
So then what I see developing here is a distinction around using personality type systems and using personality type systems for self-growth, for growth reasons. Because one could argue the CIA is using it, so their understanding of it would be good because they're ostensibly applying it in the real world. But we're saying that still is not going to be enough. Like just by making it practical and actionable. Because I think that's where we used to think, like maybe many years ago. We've always been into personal growth. But it's like, well, put it into application. Understand how it's used. Use it in coaching. Use it to help people. That's going to round out your understanding of the system. But we're saying, no, that's even more than that. It's not just helping other people or being able to interface or putting into action. It's also putting it into action for the self. And this is where I think our coaching and work with John Beebe comes in, where, you know, for years we've talked about grow your co-pilot, grow your auxiliary cognitive function. You know, we talk about the CAR model. And it's like, what does that mean? Oh, just grow it, go exercise it, whatever, use it. And we know archetypically that's a parent energy. But applying it to the self-parenting is when it starts to really unlock. So it's not just applying it in the outer world, it's applying it in a particular way to the self in growth. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're talking about today.